to In the News for August the 14th, 2026. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Hey, Brett.
Good morning, Jeff. We talked last week, I guess fairly extensive, or maybe it's a couple of weeks ago. You accurately predict, I predict that you have accurately predicted September 9th will be the day that Apple will make some announcements on new products. Now, we don't know that for sure. It's just based on your very scientific research that you have been conducting for many, many years now, Jeff, that we think it'll be September 9th. Apple hasn't had a formal announcement, but why don't we just go through and talk about a few things that people have been dropping, maybe rumor-ish. I mean, there's just not a whole lot to talk about now. It's if September 9th is indeed the day, that's in a few weeks. And so we're all just kind of speculating just a little bit on what this goes on. So a couple of things that you mentioned today. My first is my favorite that you mentioned, that Bloomberg's Mark Gurman says that everyone, quote unquote, inside Apple has been referring to the company's upcoming foldable iPhone as the iPhone Ultra. Now, we've mentioned this before, but that would be interesting if they actually really go with that phrase iPhone Ultra, because I've seen some other people talk about the fact that Ultra is reserved for other kind of products. Like, it'll just be interesting exactly what this is going to be called, that new foldable iPhone.
Yeah, on the one hand, marketing decisions are, of all the things that Apple tries to hold secret, its marketing decisions, including what it calls products, is, I think, perhaps the most secret. I mean, that they do that. There are the fewest
Right.
leaks from there. Having said that, Mark Gurman's been talking about the word Ultra for a while, and although this newest rumor of everyone says, I mean, what does everyone mean? That the three people he happened to talk to, who knows? But and he's it's an easy rumor because he's not, this particular one is not saying that's absolutely what it's going to be called. It's just that's what people were referring to it at. But putting all of that aside, we do know that Apple tends to reuse names. Like when they find like an adjective or whatever, they like to use it over again. When they first came out with Pro, then everything's Pro. When they first came out with, Air, they use it in all sorts of different ways, all devices. iPad Air. So Ultra is a word that they have been using for a while in a couple of different contexts. I mean, most notably, you have an Apple Watch Ultra in your wrist right now.
Correct.
And so it's a name that they like. Another obvious one would be to call it something like the iPhone Fold, and that would be a new adjective, I guess, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I could sort of see Apple saying that, it's more than just the fact that it folds. It's that it's got these interesting, additional features. I sort of like it. I mean, if this is what Apple does, I do like it because, again, when I think about the Apple Watch Ultra, it has a couple things. I mean, you could have called that the Apple Watch durable, because that's one of the things that's more durable. But it's got other things too, like it's got the action button and stuff like that, or even sport, right?
Apple Watch Sport, I felt like would have been appropriate.
They could have done that for sure. But Ultra is a generic enough name that it can mean all sorts of extra features, and so I could see that for the iPhone too. What I think is funny is that it's now basically become a foregone conclusion amongst everybody that there is a foldable iPhone coming out. Now we're into the next stage of it, what the details are going to be. Is the camera going to be not as good? Is there going to be a visible crease and all that sort of stuff? But we're close enough. I expect in about 2 weeks. That's my best guess. In about 2 weeks, Apple is going to say, here's the release date of September 9, if I'm right on that. And then 2 weeks after that, we will get the official announcements. So anyway, I think, it's just a rumor, but it would not surprise me. I think that iPhone Ultra, I could totally see Apple picking that name for it. So that's one of the things that I think that we're going to see on September 9th. What else are you thinking? I mean, you're seeing some of the same speculation and rumors that I am. What else do you think they're going to come out with on the 9th?
Yeah, well, we could roll right into another story that you linked to here that obviously the biggest bet is the iPhone 18. I mean, because I got to be honest with you, I'm just a little bit on the fence of whether or not Apple is actually going to release a foldable iPhone. I mean, like you said, everybody has just kind of taken it for granted. I'm not 100% there. I'm probably about 92, 93% there, but it wouldn't surprise me, Jeff, just based on some of the past history with both services, and the AI stuff and some of the other products that we've talked about. Like, we've been talking about that home kit with a screen on it for how long, for a while. And it just wouldn't surprise me if somebody at Apple has already made the decision whether or not they're actually going to have a foldable iPhone or not. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, right? I was looking that story that you linked to about Bloomberg's Mark Gurman talking about that, link to another story from about a month ago by Juli Clover about all the rumors about Apple's foldable iPhone. And as I was just skimming through here, it's all the stuff that I I I kind of remember. I mean, this is not easy, right? One of the things that she talks about in here is Apple wants a minimal crease. Right? That's always been the thing. Is like, and that makes complete sense to me. It's like Apple is not going to release this unless they can absolutely confidently release a foldable iPhone with like no crease that's going to be seen, no issues with that crease, because you open that up 10,000 times over a couple of years or so. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of hardware engineering feats.
Right.
Apple can do it. But it's like, if they're not 100% ready to do that, I don't know if they will. And then here, even at the very bottom, I can see one of the things that they said was there may not be Face ID in the foldable iPhone, right? Is it going to be so thin? It's just some of those things. Like I couldn't stand to use an iPhone today without Face ID.
Mm-hmm.
So then, that would almost be a deal breaker for me to some extent on the foldable iPhone if it doesn't even have Face ID. It's those kind of things on there that it makes me pause. I know the rumor has been out there. I know people kind of take it for granted. I hope so too. I'm not trying to poo-poo on it. It's just the idea. It's like if they're not 100% on that, I don't know if it's going to happen. And then, as I kind of alluded to, this other story that you linked to today from The Verge, that Apple, there's some kind of a supplier rumor, or people are talking about the fact that with the iPhone 18, which is much more of a sure bet to me, are they going to release all the different models of the iPhone 18? And in fact, I think this Verge story, I think you can correct me, it says we might see the iPhone 18 and the Pro, but maybe not the regular iPhone, or maybe just the Pro and not the regular, just because of all of the issues going on today with the supplier, with the chips, all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, there have been rumors, speculation for years that Apple would want to smooth out the iPhone releases, because although there have been times where Apple has released special models of the iPhone at different points of the year, traditionally for so many years now, it's been the fall releases, and it's been the fall that they come up with all the major new iPhone models, which means that so many of Apple's sales are in that fall quarter.
Right.
And so for years, people have said that Apple would prefer it to sort of smooth out that income throughout the course of the year and break up the release of the phones. Well, that, along with the fact that memory is in such limited supply around the world, it's just crazy,
Right.
the implications that it has on everything. My law office, Brett, we were trying to buy just some printers, like the big, huge printers you have for a company.
Yeah.
And printers are hard to get because printers have memory in them. And I say printers, I mean these big combination copier printer things,
Scanners,
that do everything. But just like those sorts of office equipment, which cost, I don't know what they cost. I'm sure they cost thousands of dollars, but they're in short supply because of memory. It is affecting everything. And so if Apple already had a reason to maybe want to split it up, and then you've got the limited memory anyway, it would not surprise me. Plus, if they are going to have this foldable iPhone, which is already another type of iPhone, I can totally see Apple saying that for this September announcement, they're going to have two types of iPhones. They're going to have an iPhone Ultra, the foldable, and they're going to have the iPhone 18 Pro, presumably both a Pro and Pro Max model. And then that would be it. And then they would wait until the spring to come out with the iPhone 18 and the 18 Air. And so it means that people that want to get an iPhone for the holiday buying season, but normally would get the more entry-level phone, they're going to either wait, because everybody just assumes it's going to come out. It'd be interesting to see if Apple actually acknowledges that. Apple usually does not pre-announce products, so I suspect that they'll just be silent on the fact that there's no 18, and yet it'll be such an obvious question for people to ask them.
That'll be a big question.
They'll have to have some answer ready to go on that. But then again, I think some of those people that might be on the fence are like, you know what, I want a new iPhone anyway. We'll go ahead and get the iPhone Pro. I'm thinking about that not that long ago, I guess it was almost a year ago, when my daughter needed a new iPhone, and she previously had been using the SE models and stuff like that. We ultimately decided for her to go ahead and get an iPhone 18 Pro, partially because I wanted her to have an iPhone that would last a little bit longer, because she was getting ready for college, which she's about to start in a couple of weeks. But even someone who I normally would think would not necessarily be a Pro user, she she loves having all the extra features of the Pro, and she's certainly not a big techie or
Oh,
anything like
nice.
that. So
Yeah.
I could totally see this rumor being true. And then if that is the case, that means that the iPhone lineup would be, as I said, the Ultra, the 18 Pro, the 18 Pro Max. And then it leads me to wonder what else is going to be in this announcement on the presumably September 9th, because they would certainly have time for other things. And
Right.
here's
Good
where
point. Good
this is
point.
typically the time of year when Apple announces a new Apple Watch. And some of the speculation has been that this might be one of the years that the Apple Watch, does a little bit more substantial changes.
Oh,
For one
yeah.
thing, that speaking of memory, that Apple Watch, to the extent that it interfaces with the new AI stuff, might need a little
Uh-huh.
bit more memory unless it just offloads all that to the phone. We'll see how that works. But I could totally see, new Apple Watches being announced at this event. And then the last one, and you alluded to this a second ago, is, for a very, very long time, there's been this rumor that Apple is working on a new HomePod, not only just
Right.
regular HomePods, the ones that are basically speakers and microphones, but a version with the screen. And would this be when Apple announces that? And so like that, if it does those three, that would be
Yeah.
three major product releases, which is something that Apple has often done in these announcements. They've had three parts, I mean, a three-parter. And then to me, the uncertainty, the one that's really I just can't really predict it, is if Apple is going to have this new home type device, are they going to do even more in the home category? Like, for example, would they come out with a camera, maybe an external camera, something to compete with the Eufys that I have and you have at your house, or some other type of a home device? There has certainly been rumors that Apple's home category has been lacking. It's been less impressive compared to its other
Uh-huh.
products. And so maybe this is the time when they actually put some emphasis into new hardware. So I mean, I have so much speculation from what you just said, the very minor thing of how do they do the foldable iPhone. You just said there's all these
Right.
questions about that, to the big picture of what are the different categories of things that are going to come out. I really think it could be a very interesting announcement in September.
And now you got all kinds of my speculating gears going because you mentioned, Apple Watch. I mean, I've heard some people rumoring about the Apple Watch Ultra 4, for example. Maybe there'll be an iPhone, an iWatch, an Apple Watch 12 or so. That would be the next thing. What about AirPods? You think, I mean, could we have
Hmm.
AirPods Pro 4? I mean,
You're
that
right,
has
right.
been
That has been
so
rumored for a long
successful.
time,
Right.
and that has been
Right.
rumored that they have a new version. Yeah, I
Huh.
forgot about that. That's another possibility too. Um, and at a certain point, if they have lots of new products to announce this fall, you would think that they would divide it up into two different announcements, right?
Right.
And if that's the case, maybe AirPods would be announced in October, and maybe
Yeah.
they would
Yeah.
wait until October to have all these home product announcements. To the extent that that's true, I could totally see them breaking it up that way too.
Last thing quickly, if they do announce the iPhone Ultra, the foldable iPhone, they may announce it on September 9th. And typically when they announce new phones, it's like you can start pre-ordering and you get it a week later. Do you think that if they announce this iPhone foldable and there still is some work to be done, they're not ready to, I mean, could that be a month or two later? Like, could you pre-order it and then not get it? I mean, could they delay it for October or November just because
Yeah.
so much work in there? Do you think that's a possibility too?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did want to mention this too. My guess is that the work is probably done. If they're ready to announce it, I think that it will be starting to ship, relatively soon. Although there have been
Okay.
times in the
Okay.
past, very rarely, where Apple has announced a product and said it's going to be about a month before this one ships.
Right. Right.
But I'm glad that you mentioned that, because not only do we have the questions about when the foldable iPhone would ship, but even just that, we just talked about the fact that because of memory shortages, they might split the 18 Pro from the regular
Mm-hmm.
18 line. But I suspect that this is going to be one of those years, and I've seen a lot of other people saying the same thing, where new iPhones are going to be in short supply. We've already seen that through the last couple of months with computers. People
Yeah.
want to buy a
Yep.
new Mac, and because of the price increases and stuff like that, you need to wait like 2 or 3 months to get a new Mac. Oftentimes when Apple makes the announcement, they'll announce it, on, for example, the Wednesday the 9th, and then they would probably start taking pre-orders maybe that Friday the 11th, or maybe the following Friday. But and there's different ways they do it. Sometimes they do it that like you have to wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to put in your pre-order. That's when they start taking
Right.
it. But I suspect that this is going to be one of those years whenever Apple starts taking pre-orders, if you're not placing a pre-order within the first couple of minutes,
Ooh,
you're going to be
yeah.
waiting, because I think that
Mm,
supply is going to be limited. And, there's going to be a small number of people that get that new device, whatever, it's the iPhone 18 Pro or whether the iPhone Ultra, that small number of people will be lucky enough to get it on the day of release, but a whole lot of other people are going to be waiting. I really
interesting.
think this is going to be a limited supply year. I really do, because of the memory issue.
Now you're scaring me. I typically wait. I don't usually pre-order. I
Mhm.
usually wait maybe 2 weeks or something like that if I get a new phone, and I've never had a problem. But man, your points are well taken that this
And this
year,
would be a year two wait, Brett, because let's just say that we're right, that they're going to have a Pro and an Ultra. And you and I have all these questions about what this Ultra would be.
right?
Anyone that is, the Ultra is going to be really expensive, right? It's going to be more expensive than the Pro. But anyone who's
Yes.
in that market, there's going to be a percentage of people that are like, well, typically I get the iPhone Pro because I like having the nicest iPhone. Is this the year that the nicest iPhone is the Ultra and I want to get it?
Mm,
This could
yeah,
definitely be a year that people want to wait, go to an Apple store, hold one of the sample models in their hand. How does it
definitely.
feel? Because if it's foldable, it's going to be a little bit thicker, I guess, but it's going to be bigger. And you can look at pictures online, but until you're actually holding it in your hand and seeing how it feels, um,
Yeah.
so maybe that's going to help Apple, that there are people that are delaying purchase anyway because they want to think about it more. I don't know.
Well, September 9th would be what I generally call like a hardware announcement, right? That's what they typically
Hmm.
focus on. So let's move to iOS 27 and talk about that,
Hmm.
because I feel like we're sort of in the last stages of some public betas. I'm trying to think, how does Apple roll this? They usually release the new iOS update before that hardware announcement. Is that right? Or
Yeah.
maybe sometimes
Well,
it's
not before
after,
the
but
announcement, but so
okay.
like let me give you some predictions.
Yeah, good.
Assuming that Wednesday the
Good. Go.
9th is when they predict it. My prediction is Wednesday the 9th, they predict the new models. Friday the 11th, they start taking pre-orders, but that could be
Yeah,
the 18th.
that's
I
normal.
will admit it. It could be the Friday the 11th, it could be Friday the 18th. And then
Okay.
I think that if they start taking pre-orders on the 11th, then the new devices would probably ship a week later. So let's just say that Friday
I
the
would think so
18th.
too. Yep.
And I think that earlier that week, we will get the final version of iOS 27. And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
if we're just going to put things on the board, I'm going to predict Wednesday, September 9th for the announcement,
I'm gonna write this down.
Friday, September 11th for the pre-orders,
Yep.
and either Monday the 14th or Tuesday the 15th of September, iOS 27 would come out. And so what that means is,
Okay.
like, if
Okay.
you decide to get a new iPhone, like I'm sure I will get a new iPhone. I guess it'll be the Pro, but who knows? Maybe I'd get the Ultra. I don't know. Um, I'll probably be using my current iPhone 17. I will
Right.
install the new operating system on this,
Yep.
and I'll have a
Right.
couple of days with it to play with it and stuff like that. And then about a week later, I would get the new phone model, and then it would have iOS 27 now. So that's what I
Okay.
predict.
Okay.
So I think that iOS 27 will come out after the announcement, but before the availability.
So they'll talk about it in the announcement, and they
Oh yeah.
normally at least,
Oh yeah.
but just not as any much as detail as obviously that we saw at WWDC. I mean, because there's just been so much coming out. In fact, here's another story that you link to. We won't spend a lot of time on iOS 27, but the new features coming in Apple Wallet, which
Hmm.
I like this story first of all because I love this list right here. All of the things that the Apple Wallet can do for you right now. And I knew
Hmm.
this, I guess, but just seeing it in this list of the credit cards, car keys, driver's license, Apple Pay, Apple Cash, transit cards, boarding passes, tickets, IDs for work and school, like order tracking. Like I do all of those things in Apple Wallet, and just seeing that list
Hmm.
just made me realize there is so much that the Apple Wallet app can do now, and I am such a huge fan, and I'm thrilled to see that they are going to improve that among many other things in iOS 27. But I'm glad that the Apple Wallet app itself is getting some additional love.
Yeah, there was one new feature that just came out. Let's see, the most recent beta is beta 5. Beta 5 of
Okay.
iOS 27 came out, I want to say this past Monday, just a few days ago. And we already knew about some of the new features in the wallet, and then there's one new one. So let's just talk about that. Some of the new
Okay.
features that we knew were coming to the wallet is this thing that's it's basically allows you to split bills with friends. And the idea is that if you
Yeah.
pay for like a dinner or something like that, one person pays using their Apple Card or whatever, you could then have the Apple Wallet app split the bill. Like let's say you've got 3 different people that are sharing the bill. It can split it, and it can send an Apple Pay request to everybody else, which of course is something you can do now too. It'll just make the math easier. So if that's something that you want to do, that's a new feature. Another new feature coming, and this is nothing new, this was announced earlier this summer, was to create passes. It's so nice when companies, like for example, when there's the Broadway in New Orleans series that, when traveling Broadway shows come around the country, they come to New Orleans to our big theater here, the Sanger Theater. And when I have my tickets for it, because we have a season tickets, I download all their tickets are digital now, and I have them right there on my Apple Wallet. And one of the things that I like about having them on my Apple Wallet is, for some reason, where the theater is located is a little bit of a dead zone. So if you're trying to like get a cellular connection and download your tickets when you're outside the theater, it can sometimes be hard. So what I want to do is I want to already have them in my Apple Wallet. So the pass is there. I don't need to have an active internet. It could be a dead internet connection, and my tickets are still there. So that's useful when vendors support a pass. But the new feature coming at iOS 27 is you could basically make your own passes. So whether it's be like a membership pass for, like, I don't know, a grocery store or something like that, or a specific event pass like your tickets, or sort of just a standard pass for something else. If you have a physical ticket or a PDF or something like that, there's going to be a step-by-step process that you can basically make your own Apple Wallet pass, so that even if the company doesn't support the wallet, you can do it yourself. And it's not something I encounter a lot, but I do encounter it sometimes, and I think that that'll be useful.
Well,
two other things. I want
to talk on that just real quick, because to me, I get so annoyed when I sign up for some kind of an event, exactly what you're describing, Jeff, and they don't have a little add to wallet logo at the very bottom. I hate that, because for exactly what you're saying, I mean, if I go to an event and I don't have the ability to add it to my wallet, what do I have to do? I typically have to go search my email, because, I buy tickets for like months in advance. I have to search through my email. And if I don't have a good, connection, nobody wants to stand in line behind me while I'm trying to search my email and find all of that stuff. For me, and that's just an amazing convenience aspect. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm going to definitely use it, because I just mentioned like the Sanger shows that I go to. There's another thing that my wife and I currently subscribe to. It's another theater. We like going to theater, live theater. There's another theater in the French Quarter in New Orleans called Le Petit that is really great shows. But theirs is exactly what you described, Brett. I get like an email in the beginning of the season that's got PDFs for all of my tickets. And if I get that email in like September, and now it's late in the season in March, I got to go back and find that old email. It's a pain. And so that's absolutely, I'm going to definitely use this feature, because they're just like scannable things, right? It's just like a little QR code.
Exactly.
So I'm going to take those QR codes, make my passes, and then I'm done, and I don't have to worry about finding those emails. So that's going to be a useful feature.
So quickly, I do this, like if I go on a hike, for example, again, sort of another event, but I can't tell you the number of times that I just pull it up my wallet app. I can pull it, I scan it right there, and I can walk in while everybody else is kind of waiting around and, and having to do it. Or when I go park at the airport, I've got that in my Apple Wallet, as opposed to having to go and have a physical card. The last thing quickly I'm going to say that makes me even more excited about this, and you alluded to this, is a pass. Let's say you've got that little scanner for like your local grocery store. Or for me, what I did, there have been apps that have done this. So basically, Apple's going to Sherlock a lot of these apps. One that I've used before, and I found it here, it's called Pass, the number 2, the letter U, Pass to You. So what that did is, let's say I had a physical library card, right? I hated having the physical library card, because I had to, I wasn't going to put it in my wallet. I hate to carry it all with me. And so I used that app to create an Apple Wallet version of my library card. And Jeff, it works. It's just very simple to your point. It's just that little scan bar there. It's not even a QR code, although you could do that. But thank you, Apple. I mean, this to me is just because the Apple Wallet, I trust it. It's safe. It's all there. I don't have to worry about carrying anything physical. You can tell I get pretty excited about a little small thing like this, but it's big.
No, this is going to improve quality of life. So this is going to be great to have in just a few weeks.
Good.
So 2 other things that we knew that were coming, and then the one that was new. One that we knew was coming, we've discussed about, is recurring transactions. This is just nice. If you use the Apple credit card, then it will be able to see, hey, every month around this time, you have a utility payment, or you have a such and such, and it can sort of, help make it easier to find those recurring transactions. It seems like a no-brainer. It's an obvious use, so that'll be nice. And then one that we already knew about was an enhanced hotel key. I have encountered a couple hotels, not a few, not many, but some hotels that instead of using their own dedicated app, they will allow
Yeah.
you to use the wallet app to store your digital
Yes.
hotel room key, which is nice because you don't want to have to carry around one of those cards, and sometimes those things are magnetic, and if you put it too close to your phone, it could stop
Right.
working and stuff. So
Right.
it's nice to
Right.
have that. So that's a feature we've had for a while for supported hotels, and there's not many, but they're going to have an enhanced version of it that, in addition to just being the room key, that same entry in the wallet app can have enhanced information, like, information about the hotel, or, whatever else. The
So
hotel
great.
could just add more stuff into that. So that's going to be really nice. So a lot of cool stuff coming in iOS 27. And anyway, the one that leads us to what was announced this week or at least became available in the beta 5, is this thing called a Discover feature, which is
Yeah.
basically a help guide. It's like a walkthrough. It's, you and I have just talked about how many new features of the wallet app, not to mention all the features that have been there forever. Suffice it to say that wallet app has a ton of features, and it's going to have even more in iOS 27. And so I like the idea that Apple has, like, we've got so much in here, people are not going to understand what they can do, or even if they know it's in there, they're going to forget how to do it. And so I think it makes sense that they have this new Discover feature, and you're showing like a picture of the current version of it, that,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
looks like it's going to be these nice, clear graphics and maybe some animations to sort of like, here's how you do this with an Apple Card. Here's how you do this with Apple Cash or with Apple
Right.
Pay
Right.
or
Right.
with passes. So I think this will be useful. This will be nice.
Yeah, this is also a good video here. I'll link to this story. I think, is this Felipe Esposito? I think it's maybe, I can't remember his name, but he's really
Mhm.
good at this. And he goes through all of these little features in there, and it's good to see him work on that as well. I mean, I know we're just focusing on the Apple Wallet, but I feel like, again, this just underlies what we talked about over the summer, Jeff, is that iOS 27 isn't going to be a huge update in the sense that it's going to be like a major thing. There's so many tiny little improvements. I just remember that the couple of those screens from the presentation at WWDC, where it was like almost unreadable because there was so many words on the screen about all the little features that they were improving. But I think that this underscores here. We just spent a few minutes talking about Apple Wallet and the little improvements. But to me, like you said, it's a quality of life improvement on that, and that's a good thing. I like that. Let's talk about another topic that we enjoy talking about: Apple Watch bands. You linked to a story. At first, I thought that you linked to the wrong story because I'm like, wait a minute, you're talking about
It's
Apple
in
Watch
there.
bands, and it's Vision Pro and glasses. But yes, this is Horace, right? The Horace Daydu,
Yeah.
excellent journalist. But he way down here, he's talking about the Vision Pro, right, and about glasses. And frankly, the whole story is interesting. But in the middle here, that you alluded to, he talked about when the Apple Watch came on board, it was a tremendous innovation in the way that bands work. Because they were user replaceable in an instant, it was super easy to take on and off with the design of the loop. And what we've had the Apple Watch now for 11 years, 12 years, I
Mhm.
can't remember exactly. And all of those original bands still work with the Apple Watch models today, Jeff. I don't think that people give Apple enough credit for keeping that design, because I am positive there were lots of engineers and designers over the years that have pushed really hard to change this because they wanted to do something different. And I love the fact that I've got multiple watch bands, and I know you changed them out as well, and they all still work.
Yeah.
It's just a great innovation.
His article was talking mostly, like you said, about the Vision Pro and what future products Apple might be doing in Vision OS. And he pointed out that one of the innovations in the Vision Pro that people don't think about is, people like me and you that wear glasses, the Vision Pro, you know, just is whatever. It's got its regular setting, but then you can purchase from what's the glass Zeiss. You can
Zeiss, yep.
purchase these, lenses, and they're magnetic, and it's so easy. You've seen it before, because when you were using my Vision Pro, you
Uh-huh.
saw that, if I
Yep.
wanted to take out my specific prescription, they're just magnetic. I just pop them out and pop them in. Nobody
Amazing.
before, at least to my knowledge, I've never before seen magnetic lenses to make it super easy to pop things on and off. I mean, maybe that existed in some context, but it was a very cool thing for Apple to put in the Vision Pro. And much like that was innovative, and he hopes that future versions of Vision OS products will have these like small little innovations in the hardware that just makes the whole thing better. And it's one of those
Yeah.
things that once you look at it, it's so obvious. It's like, oh, of course. Same thing with the Apple Watch. He was saying that, people talk about all sorts of things about the Apple Watch. It's a good fitness device. It's a good notifier. And it's, but one of the things that is an unsung hero is that it made it so easy to swap out bands. And plus it's been nice because they haven't changed it in so long. As you said, for 11 years, we've used those same bands. But like before that, if you wanted to change, most people never really changed a watch band at all. Or if you did,
never.
sometimes
Yeah.
you need a special tool. You have to take the pins out.
Yeah,
I
those
mean,
little pins. Yeah.
the simple idea that it would be so easy to swap. I mean, as I said in my post, I swatch my bands, I think, a lot more than you. I do it every day because when I'm at work, I use my Milanese loop, which sort of looks a little bit more professional. But then as soon as I get home, I swap out to something that's a little bit more comfortable. Or if I'm going to be doing dishes, I want to have the the poly whatever that
Yeah, like the solo loop or something.
thing. Yeah, the solo loop, something like that, so that it can get wet and stuff like that. And then in the weekend, so I'm like, I swatch bands all the time. Plus, sometimes I do it for colors. If I'm more of a today, I'm more of a maroon shirt on, I might wear a maroon
You gotta
color.
match.
Whatever. It's a silly thing. Not that I'm the farthest from a fashion plate you can imagine, but that's just me. So it's a cool feature. It's an innovative feature. Give Apple some credit for it. I hope they continue to do this in their products. And I was thinking about all of this today because I saw a link in the New York Times. It's an article that came out a few weeks ago, but it was recently circulated in one of their newsletters. And it was one of their articles. Haley Perry was talking about she wants to dress up her Apple Watch when she goes out. And she's like, if I'm going to wear a fancy dress, it seems a little silly to be wearing like a red sport loop or something like that. Sometimes the pop of color works, but sometimes you want something that looks a little bit fancier. And so she went out and purchased, I don't even know how many, 30 different bands, and found the ones that she thought, and again, this is a totally subjective thing. Some of these bands are, they look really nice on her wrist. It certainly would not look good on my wrist, but that's fine. But I thought it was a nice article because she was looking for something elegant, but not ridiculously expensive. I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars on watch bands if you want. Apple has the Hermes ones that are ridiculously expensive. So, but she wanted to find something that was nice, but just a couple of $100s. So, I mean, just like any other fashion jeweler you would have, but to sort of spruce up the Apple Watch. And she has an interesting ones in here. Most of them, I mean, I don't mean to be gender. People can wear whatever they want to wear. Most of these are probably more likely worn by women, but there's a couple in here, like some nice link bracelets that I think would look good on a man as well. Again, for me, I personally like the Milanese loop as my fancier band, and some of the other ones. So it's an interesting article to see how, what decisions that she made and how she looked at and what features she liked. And there's just so much variety out there in the Apple Watch world. It's crazy.
The other thing that highlights on these pictures that I'm looking at here, not just the bands, but you can change the faces so easily, right? So
Good point.
You
Good
kind
point.
of match it. It looks a little bit different. My son does this. He's got several watch faces that he does. I tend to just stay on my ultra modular face because of all the information that I get, and I'm just kind of used to it. But he likes to, make a change up on some of that. And then here, I'll bring up the Apple Watch band page here, because there are so many, as I start looking through here. I remember the first day, it's like these sport bands. That's what they started with, right? That's the OG. That's the original
right.
That frankly still works great today. It just amazes me how well that they continue to work on there. But there are so many different options out here today. The one that I started when I got my Apple Watch Ultra 3, I got this black charcoal trail loop. So there's been some
People
other
love
loops
those
like
trail loops. I've heard really
I gotta
good
tell
things
you,
about that
it's
one.
fantastic. I mean, just the way, mainly because I don't like any kind of a metal buckle or anything else, because I'm typically always typing and I'm hitting computers, and so I don't like anything to hit on this. I've taken this on multiple hikes, sweated all over the place. It's dried just fine. It's been great. Plus, I like the fact that I can adjust the tightness, because if I'm running, for example, I like to tighten it up a little bit, and if I'm not, then I can, I can loosen it up. But I mean,
Can I ask you a question about that real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I know that those come with the Ultra, but like if you go back and click on the trail, click on the trail loop, does it only, I mean, we just talked about compatibility and stuff like that, but does the trail loop only work with the Ultra, or would it actually, it says designed for a Ultra, see compatibility details. Could you actually use it with an Apple Watch series if you wanted to?
I understand. Now it's designed here. Let me click on this. And pair best with a 49 millimeter, but they are compatible
so that's
with.
A rare,
so it still would work there.
Well, does it say compatible?
Yes,
oh, you're right.
The bands are also compatible.
So they say it would work best with the slightly larger 49 millimeter case that you have with the Ultra, but they're saying it would fit. I don't know that I've seen that in the wild, but that would be interesting. If you wanted to use this with a series, I guess you could. I guess you could.
It just, there's so much that you can do today. I was just thinking, I don't have a picture of this, but for example, the original sport bands here are almost like, I would say they're almost like the width of the Apple Watch, right? And they go around. But my wife and my daughter didn't like the fact that those bands were that thick. So what they did is they got those, I call them almost slim, like they're about half the size, if that makes sense what I'm describing here. And they just love that because it's still kind of a sport band. Now, this wasn't Apple. This is, there's dozens and dozens of third-party bands that you can get these days. But they found something on Amazon, I believe, to where it was just kind of a thinner thing. And, for their wrists, they just like that. Again, I just truly appreciate the fact that it can be so versatile like this, and people can just kind of get whatever that they're going to be most excited about. And I can see Apple Watches from afar, and when I see somebody wearing it, I'm always going to glance quickly at whatever kind of a band that they have, just because I'm that nosy, I guess. But I'm interested in knowing what they're doing with those bands. So anyway, great article that you'll link to here from the New York Times that you talked about, and I'll make sure it gets in the show notes because that'll be fun as well. Well,
Before we move on,
yeah, please.
I don't know but at the very end of that post, I noted that there was a link to something from Victoria's song of the Verge. Is that where you're going to go next, or are you going to switch topics? Because I thought that was sort of interesting.
Let me bring that up because you're right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the rumors that we've heard of things that Apple could announce maybe this year or some other year is an Apple Watch without a screen, which I'm sure they wouldn't even call an Apple Watch. But the idea is, what if you wanted to have something that like you don't need a screen if you're just wearing it as a sleep tracking device, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're out in the world, you don't want to have an obnoxious, the Apple Watch screen might look obnoxious to you, but you still want to get credit for keeping the health tracking in case that you have, a heart attack or something like that. And so there's been rumors for a long time that Apple might come out with a wearable device that doesn't have a screen. And so that was the reason I linked to this article in The Verge from this week that was talking that she's not talking about Apple specifically. She's talking about third-party companies that make, whether it's a ring size device like the Oura Ring, or whether it's a band size device. And it's just interesting to me because Apple has been making, like you said, the Apple Watch has been around for 11 years, since 2015. And they have changed it over the years. They're a little bit bigger. They've, there's different things that have changed. And yet, if you look at that first generation Apple Watch and you look at your Ultra, there is still so much similarity there. It still has that squarish screen, there's a rectangle screen. It does make you think that there's something here that Apple could do. Now, would there be a big enough market for it? I don't know. But I've always wondered whether Apple would come out with, expanding the Apple Watch to something that doesn't have a screen, but is still a wearable. It would just be interesting. And although I have heard rumors that Apple might come up with something like this year, I don't put a lot of credit. I mean, I just think it's more speculation of people saying, well, one of these days, surely Apple will do this eventually. So I just wanted to sort of put a pin in that it's something that we're thinking about and something that I suspect that Apple is thinking about too, but will they ever do it? I don't know.
I saw that you linked to the story and I probably just immediately dismissed it because I'm like, why would I want that? But then as you just were talking, I just realized I'm not wearing it right now, but I have an Oura Ring. So it's like I would probably be open to something like that, I guess. At that point, it wouldn't be called an Apple Watch, I guess I would say, right? Because it has to have a screen of some kind on it. And I'm just again, you and I are a little bit on, the crazy side of the technology. So I'm so glued to having the screen and all of this information on my Apple Watch. In fact, I want more information on my Apple Watch, in addition to having it do all the tracking that it does now. But yeah, I don't know. Would it be another bracelet? Would it be a ring? Would it be an anklet bracelet?
An ankle monitor, the Apple
earring. I don't know. Like it just at some point it has to be a little crazy, but I'm glad you mentioned it because you're right. There is a market for that. I know that I'm downplaying it from my standpoint, and maybe I'm just not the right audience member for that. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know that that's where Apple is going. Although on the other hand, they have such an emphasis on the health aspects of everything.
That's the thing,
and they have the technology. So yeah, okay, good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's go back to the Vision Pro just quickly, just briefly here, because we mentioned it in the story from Horus, and I know this is something you're excited about because you linked to the fact that Apple is now going to have Major League Baseball games, at least a few, showing an immersive video. Now, real quick, we've already had like soccer games, I believe. You talked about a basketball game before. And boy, Heidi, this is really getting up into the top tiers, right? Of baseball. And I guess NFL's got to be next.
Yeah. So
At some
Apple has
point.
done a number of sports things. Like they have showed like a highlights of a soccer, you know,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they were
yeah.
just highlights of like of one of the special games. But they in terms of showing an entire game live, they have only done it earlier this year when they had the four, I think it was four, maybe it was six Lakers games. And even then, although I know that Apple was heavily involved in that production, it wasn't technically done by Apple. It wasn't on Apple TV initially. The original games were
Oh,
on the
yeah.
Spectrum, and it was only for Los Angeles. And so someone who lives in New Orleans, could not watch the games live. Without, I know some people did some crazy VPN type things and stuff like that, but unless you were,
Yeah.
doing something crazy, you couldn't watch them live. So I watched them after the fact. And of course, a sports event, watching it after the fact when you already theoretically know who won or lost, I mean, that takes away a lot of
Not
the
quite as
excitement,
fun.
right?
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to watch the event live. And it's not even just sports, because like there's just an idea of, if you're watching a concert that's recorded versus watching something that's live, or a concert or a theater performance, there's just something about the aspect of it being live. There's a show that you can it's an app, and it's a service. I think it's called like Broadway.com or something like that. But you can watch live Broadway shows from around the country, wherever you are, that are coming from New York. And my wife and I have done that once or twice before. It's like, it's a show that we're not going to get to New York to see live, but we can watch it live. And, it starts at 7 o'clock, whatever time it is, you got to be there. It's an event. And there's just something
Yeah.
about the idea that it's live that just makes it better, I guess.
Yeah.
And so you combine the idea that live is better with sports, that's definitely true for. And so I just think that this, allowing people to, you don't have to be there. You don't have to travel to New York for the game. You don't have to travel to Chicago for the game or whatever. You can be in your home and wear whatever your device is. Right now it's an Apple Vision Pro. In the future, it'll be future devices, and that you can feel like you are there immersively. I just think that a lot of people that are true fans are going to love this. And so I liked the basketball one. It was a shame I had to watch them after the fact. Now that this is something that Apple already has the rights to, Friday night baseball games, it doesn't surprise me. The only thing that surprises me about this is it's taken this long to do it. But I know that they had to wait for the cameras to be
That's
available,
licensing and stuff too.
and it's, I'm sure there's a lot into it, but it would have been great if they did this a year ago, but it's fantastic that they're doing it now. And I am so curious to see, what did Apple learn from doing the live basketball games in January?
Yeah. Great point.
We're now this many months later. There's been, a lot of heated debate over, should you do an immersive game the way that you would do a traditional 2D broadcast, where you keep switching between camera angles and stuff like that? Or, because every time you switch angles in an immersive environment, it can make you a little seasick if it goes too often. And so there are some people that are like, I would just prefer to have a single place, like give me the perfect seat right behind home plate, or right next to first base, and just let me stay there the whole time. And if I want to look around, I will look around on my own. Some people say it would be great if you could like click a button to like you yourself decide when you switch camera positions. I suspect that Apple's going to probably switch camera positions for you, but we're just exploring this. I mean, this is the thing. We are such early days. We are still 5 years or more away from when this is becoming common, when a lot more people have the devices and stuff like that. So I love just watching Apple explore this stuff and figure it out. And I'm really fascinated to see what they're going to do for these baseball games. And I'm not, I mean, I've certainly gone to baseball games before in my life. I'm not a huge baseball fan. I personally would be more interested in watching like one of my favorite, my New Orleans Saints play a football game, but Apple does not own the rights to that, so I don't see that coming.
Right.
But for people that are fans of baseball, and there are many avid baseball fans out there, this is going to be something that they would really like. So I can't wait to see what they do.
Okay, am I correct that Apple TV already does run some baseball games? I know Friday because night. I get the okay, so they have Friday night. So this announcement is really the fact that in Friday Night Baseball, 4 games are now going to be broadcast in this immersive video component. Okay,
Correct.
so that's the thing that makes the difference here. In fact, they even have a little schedule here, and I noticed on
Just
September
the ones
4th,
with the little icon have it. Yeah.
I see that, right, which is sad because I've noticed that on September 4th, the Detroit Tigers are going to be at the Cleveland Guardians game, which is right here in my backyard. In fact, because I was getting all excited, like I could go to the actual game, I could sit in Progressive Field, and I guess that would be immersive. But you know how you go to the baseball games and some people would bring a radio with them because they want to hear the announcers from the radio. I want to sit in Progressive Field, buy a ticket, sit in the baseball field, but have an Apple Vision Pro on watching the game.
Funny. That is funny. But again, that's
okay.
That
was
is not a game.
One of them.
That will not be immersive. It's the other September 4th game, the Angels and the Pirates, that's going to be immersive. I love that first game because, you know, the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. I mean, Boston and New York fans are avid.
Talk about a winner.
I think
of
that
a game
they
start
hate each other. They hate the other team. That's going to be that is a storied rivalry.
Okay, so you're watching that one, right? You're going to watch that one.
I will absolutely watch it because I want to see how Apple does it, right? I want to just see what decisions they make. You know, there's this is just total speculation from me, but there is a podcast that I often listen to called Mac Break Weekly. I know you listen to it sometimes too.
Yes.
And one of the long time, ever since when the podcast first started, a very long time ago, there's a guy named Alex Lindsay who was on it. And Alex, his professional area is video, doing live video. He was hired by Apple earlier this year, and you know, he's not going to say specifically what he was hired to do, but you know that he was hired because, I mean, his expertise is live video. So I'm sure that he was a part of live video. And plus he had a huge interest in spatial video. You know, he was doing all sorts of things, experiments. He did like an episode of Mac Break Weekly that was using spatial video. I would bet all of my money that Alex Lindsay, someone who I used to listen to every week on the podcast, is involved in these decisions. And it'll be curious. Who knows how high up he is, but I know that he has a lot of thoughts on how to do spatial video correctly, and he will now be, you know, sharing that with Apple. They might listen to some of his suggestions, they might reject some other ones, but again, this is why I just have some hope that this is going to be not just that it's good, but I'm hoping to see something interesting, or like, wow, you know, just as innovative as those replaceable watch bands were on the Apple Watch 11 years ago. I want them to come up with something for spatial video that I'm like, oh yeah, this is how this should be done, so that going forward for future sports events, for future live concerts. I mean, like I said, you know, my joke to my post, can you imagine if you could purchase, you know, spatial video for live Taylor Swift concerts when she was doing that tour, and people were already spending tons of money. In fact, I think you did. Your family spent a lot of money to go to that. You know, and again, I know with spatial video, the problem is you're watching it by yourself. You're not sharing it with other people unless you have multiple Vision Pros available. But this is the future, and I'm just excited to see Apple play around with it and explore cool new ways to make this work.
So August 28th, that's a Friday, as you say. So when we record that day, that'll be that night you'll watch it. So we want to hear the report after that. Speaking of Apple TV, let's do a quick end the show to end the episode. And before we get to the headliner, watching the first couple of episodes of Ted Lasso, let's talk about this link quickly that you put. Apple TV gains movie collection. I love this. Apparently, what is it, every month or something that they come out with these, that they have some, you know, backlogs, I guess, of movies that they can throw out there. But man, there's some good ones in this list.
So it's more rare than you would think. This is not the first time Apple has done this. But one of the things that makes the Apple TV service different from Netflix, Prime Video, you know, all the other ones, is that they don't have the back catalog. I mean, because the service has been around long enough, they now have their own back catalog of shows.
It's getting there, right?
You know, this is not like, you know, you turn on HBO and you can watch all the movies of the week or the month. And so it's pretty rare. I think it's actually been a couple of years since Apple had some back catalog titles, but for whatever reason they decided to do it. Are they available right now? I think they are. So there are 19 films. I think it's funny that they call these classic movies.
I know that hurt a little
some
bit.
Of these are classics. Like one of them is like The Martian. The Martian just came out a few years ago.
I know.
Right? I mean, that was but you know, there are some ones that are a little bit older here. You know, E.T., for example, goes back to the 1980s.
Yeah, no kidding.
And The Sixth Sense goes back to the 80s or 90s, Titanic. But you know, these are all good movies. And although I've seen a lot of these, there's actually a few on this list that I have never seen. And I'm like, for example, I like sci-fi stuff, and I don't think I ever saw Looper. Did you ever see that Looper movie? That might be one for me to watch.
Oh, I've
So
seen bits and pieces of that. And that fact, I think there was a television show too, because like
yeah.
I'm a big sci-fi fan. Surely you watched iRobot when that came out with
I did, and that was a good one. So, but
that's a
I'm
very
gonna
good
I'm gonna
album.
look through
Yeah.
this list, and although I never saw the 21 Jump Street movie, I actually used to watch that show when it was on
Did you?
TV. Was that a Johnny Depp show back in the like
I
80s or
believe
whatever?
so.
I did watch
Wow.
21 Jump
Okay.
Street when I was in like college or something like that. So I don't know if the movie was any good, but so anyway, it's nice that there are now 19 films that if you're looking for something to watch on your Apple TV, and I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
how long
good.
these will last for. My guess is they'll be around for like a month or something like that. But if there's a show on this list that you haven't seen, and wow, I've never seen E.T., go ahead and let's watch E.T. now. Although I guess they're going to do the version where they digitally altered it to take away the scene where people are running around with guns in their hands, and they change them to flashlights. Remember
Yeah,
how they did that a
boo.
couple of years ago?
Yes,
Boo.
I remember.
Anyway.
Yeah. I gotta make sure my kids, I don't know that I remember that we asked them to sit down and watch the Goonies.
Uh-huh.
Which
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I think about that similar to ET, I guess
Yeah, oh,
because
yeah, it's
kids
the
on
same time
bikes and
frame.
everything
Yeah.
like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But man, have we done ET? I mean, you gotta, phone home and Reese's Pieces. I
Oh,
mean,
sure.
yeah,
Oh,
my
sure.
goodness, we got to get that out. Okay. We believe, Jeff, that Ted Lasso was going to be a success, and we were correct. And so I'm going to guess that so far now you have, just like me, watched both of the new episodes for season 4, or are you saving it for tonight? You got the
So
second
because
episode?
yeah, I haven't watched the second episode yet because my wife and I
Oh,
usually watch
okay.
TV
No
together on Friday
spoilers.
night. We actually talked about it. We talked about watching it on, was it Wednesday night that it came out?
Yeah,
And I was like,
my wife and I
let's
did. Yeah.
let's wait till Friday. So, I mean, my guess is that unlike the first episode, which all took place in Kansas City and was very fun, I'm guessing in the second episode, I don't think it's a big spoiler to say, is he going to be in England in episode number 2? I mean,
Correct.
well, yeah. So, okay,
It's
as
so
I
good.
predicted. So I can't wait. I
And
tell
so
you,
it's like
that
I know
first episode.
people, yeah. I know people are panning it. I mean, like, in the sense of like, oh, it's so predictable. It's like, what's gonna happen. But Jeff, it's so good. It just makes you smile. It's so
It makes
good.
you smile. It's funny. I thought they did a nice job with that first episode that was in Kansas
They
City.
did.
I've
They
heard some
did.
people say that like they had a lot of uh references, as you will, to the Wizard of Oz in terms of like the dress that she wears, like Dorothy, and lots of not in Kansas anymore. So, but that's fine. I thought it was cute, and like the most important thing was, did it make me laugh and smile? It absolutely did. And just like all the Ted Lasso episodes over time, the good ones, the bad ones, did it make me sort of happy and feel good? It did. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed just the video that I had at the end of my post today. Like just before I watched that first episode,
Yeah,
they ran that promo where they sort of used,
I saw it.
digital special effects to have Ted show up in some of the different Apple TV shows. I thought it was cute to see him in, Severance and
He was Slow
and
Horses,
Friends and
right?
Neighbors. And I
Silo. He
just
was in Silo too.
Philo, I thought it was a cute way to do it. So now I saw this video when Apple first released it, but when I saw it
Uh-huh.
show up on YouTube, like I enjoyed watching it a second time because there were things that I missed the first go around. Like I think when in Severance, I missed that the balloons had Ted's face on it as opposed to someone else,
Are
which
you
is such an obvious
serious?
thing. But
Oh,
like
that's
I guess I was looking at a different
where
part of
is
the
it?
screen. I didn't notice
Here
it.
it
Yeah,
is.
it's
Yeah.
Milchek has hit the
Yeah,
balloons
yeah,
in his hand.
Miljack.
So anyway, I thought it was a cute video.
There it
So
is.
there,
The
yeah,
Sears
there it
piece.
is. Yeah, you can see it right there. So without any spoilers, because I'm going to watch it tonight, but I take it you
Yes.
enjoyed the second episode
Oh
too,
my
right? It was
goodness,
good.
it's so good. It's so
Good,
good. So I mean, I think no less than 3 times we had to stop just because we were laughing so hard, and it's like we had to just rewind it. I mean, it's just some of those lighters again, predictable. It's crazy. You got Roy Kent back. Oi! I mean, it's so good. Oh, so
Yeah.
now I was a firm believer that they should have stopped and not created a season 4. I got to be honest with you. I mean, because I just felt like it's like that's good. Just tie the bow on it and you're good to go. But this is season 4 we're into now. So far, 2 episodes in, I'm loving it, as I knew that I would. But it's just like, okay, how far can you stretch this band before it snaps? Well, apparently you leaked to they already are talking about a season 5 and a season 6, and I'm just like, at some point it's not going to go well.
Apple hasn't officially announced the season 5 and 6 yet, but that is the rumor within. I mean, Deadline is an industry, rumor. They get all the scuttlebutt in Hollywood, and the rumor they're hearing is that when Jason Sudeikis and the team signed up for this, they signed up for 3 more seasons. And I'm sure there's some contractual things that if it wasn't popular, Apple could probably pull the plug. And yet, that other Deadline story says that this was the most popular premiere on Apple TV ever. And I mean, Apple TV is a young network compared to some of the other ones, but they've had other big ones come out, and this is their biggest premiere ever. I mean, it was all sorts of Nielsen. It was the #1 show on anything that night. And so given the success from the initial season 4, I suspect we will see a season 5 and a season 6. I mean, why not? I mean, it's such a good show. And, we, like you say, we worry about, what's the old phrase from Happy Days, jumping the shark. You don't want Fonzie, when Fonzie jumps the shark, that's when it's probably time to end the show. And likewise, Ted Lasso every good show gets to that point where it has, it has worn out its welcome. But I hope they're not there yet. And I hope that they've got 3 good more seasons, because I think that would be great to have 6 total seasons of Ted Lassos instead of 3.
In the know. Let's do a quick in the know. Okay, for this one, my friend, I'm going to channel my 6-year-old self, but I'm doing this for you because I know that you're a fan of word games. If I'm not mistaken, you still do Wordle every day.
Every single day.
Every day. So then I am happy to share with you your newest word game obsession now, Poople. This, our dad, not my dad. This is if you go to poople.io, our dad invented this game to keep us occupied on family road trips, and now you can play. Jeff, you have a word with 4 letters. Today's letter is wave, W-A-V-E. You can change 1 letter at a time to eventually get to poop. You have to end up on poop. So, for example, wave, I tried this morning. I am not good at these. My first guess was pave, right? That's good. So I hit enter.
So I got the 1 P. letter and you got the
Change
P.
1 letter. Okay, so that's as far as I got this morning.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bad at these, but it's like you got to change 1 letter at a time to get to the word poop. So I don't know where to go at this point. I guess maybe pove. No, that's not our word, is it? So I hit enter. Yeah. My daughter, we were just on vacation. So that's why I liked the explanation. We were driving back and forth to Maine, and my daughter and my son started playing this. It was a good road game. And I got to tell you, I'm not good at this. I forget what word that it was a few days ago when my daughter introduced it to me. It took me 18 tries, Jeff,
to
get to poop. So then my wife wanted to try it. And of course, she gets it in 8 tries, and it's like the record for that day was 6 tries. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give up on there. But Jeff, this is my gift to you. I wanted you to have poople.io. I mean, I don't know where to go next one. Is it pove? No, I already tried pove. You can change 1 letter, P-A-P-E-P-A-O-E. No, okay, that's not it. Good luck.
I saw that you had this in the show notes about 30 minutes before we started recording. So I started playing it. I could tell that this was your gift to me.
Yes.
And I had never heard of this before. And I'm like, this is too funny. So one thing that I've noticed is that when you go through this game, sometimes you might go down one thing. Like you went from go back to where you were.
Yeah.
So you went from wave to pave. But you might realize I'm at a dead end. So correct. I need to go back. So for you, I would make your next guest wave. Go back to wave where you were before. And
okay, so you want me to
type in WAVE, which is
okay. So go to WAVE.
So now you're back to where you were before, and instead of changing that W to a P, I would change the A to an O. So now you've got wove.
Oh, wove. Yeah,
So
okay.
now you got wove. So now you got the O.
Okay, keep going.
So now that you have that, and again, you can just sort of keep going.
You solved it, didn't you? You already solved it.
I did solve it. And because I was still figuring it out, it took me a couple of things, but I guarantee you that this is a game that I will, much like I have to wake up and do my Wordle, I'm going to have to wake up and poop. That doesn't sound very good. But anyway.
You have to poople. You have to poop. Okay, no, I want to finish it. Okay, what did you do next? I got to know how you did this.
I got there eventually. I don't remember exactly what I did. Did I do
pove?
I think I did woke next, W-O-K-E.
Ooh,
and so once you
you can't.
No, W-O-K-E.
Woke. And then you can do poke.
Once you're on woke, you can do poke. And now you've got the P-O. And then I forget what I did next.
Poke-P?
I think I
Oh
did.
yeah, like you said, you have to
Pokey.
go
So
back,
anyway, you may
and
have
I
to go
just
back,
can't
but
get
that's how
that.
you do it. Yeah.
Like I get too excited that I have the next word, and I put that in, and it's like I need to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead.
This is why I
And then
like
at
it.
that
Is it
point, I
looks so
realized
simple, but it's
I
actually more
know.
sophisticated. You have to think it's like chess. You have to think multiple moves ahead. That's what I like about it. Yeah.
And then at that point, I realized what I'm doing with my life, that I'm thinking 3 steps ahead on a game called Poople. All right, save us, my friend, and give us another tip for the
Okay.
day.
Well, thank you for the poople. Okay, so my tip today has to do with counting the seconds. And I know this might
Oh,
sound silly,
okay.
but there have been a number of times where like I'm just counting down the seconds. I'm waiting for something to happen. I want to wait 30 seconds or I want to see the seconds. I There are Apple Watch displays that show the seconds, but I don't like them because I find
Correct.
it a little too busy. And so for many
Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
digital displays, if you have the hour and the minute and the seconds, it's just too much nonsense on the screen. And then of course, if
Correct.
you have an analog display, many of the analog displays, you can choose to have a secondhand Superman, and that doesn't bother me as well, and that works fine. So if I
Mm-hmm.
have an analog Apple Watch display, I will typically have a secondhand, but I usually don't have an analog Apple Watch display. Like you, I usually use like one of the modular type things that have
Mm-hmm.
like, the one that I usually use has got the time and it's got my activity rings on it and stuff like that. And
Right.
so what do I do if I want to see the seconds, but I don't want to see it all the time? And my tip on this is one of my favorite Apple Watch gestures that only works in some of the newer Apple Watch models, the Series 9, 10, and 11, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and 3, and the Apple
Yeah.
Watch SE3. But if
Yeah.
you've
Here's the
got one of
list.
those relatively new models, I mean, not the newest, because the Series 9 has been around for a while, you have the feature that you can tap your index finger and your thumb twice, dot, dot. So you do that. If you do the double double, as long as your Apple Watch is on, like if your Apple Watch is in its sleep mode, it's not going to work. But if you move your Apple Watch or raise it up so that it turns on, I can just
Right.
tap, and then it instantly moves into the display where I can see those little cards at the bottom. But the
Like the
reason I
smart
like it
stack.
is
Yeah.
because once I'm looking at the in addition to the smart stack, at the top right, it has got like the time in the middle and a little second hand that sweeps around it. And there have been times where I'm like just waiting, I'm doing something in my kitchen where like once it's finished, you need to wait like another 30 seconds before you take it off. And I may not be literally, but I just want to have a sense of like what is about 30 seconds. And I use this feature not every day, but I certainly use it every week. And so if you're like me
Interesting.
and you don't have seconds displayed all the time on your Apple Watch, but there are times during the day when you do want to see, just counting down the seconds or just to see how close we are to something. Is it about to change the minute? I have a conference call with a client that's going to be on Zoom or Teams or whatever. Am I a full
Yeah.
60 seconds away or am I only 10 seconds away? I will just lift up my hand, do that tap with my fingers, and then I instantly say, oh, it's about to, I'm literally seconds away, or maybe it's a full 60 seconds away, or maybe I'm counting down 10 seconds or counting down 15 seconds, or I want to have a general sense. All of those times in your life when seconds matter, this is a nice little gesture. So there's lots of things you can do with the double tap gesture, but just bringing up the seconds display is one that I really like.
Now, one of the key parts here to your tip is that you need to have an analog watch face on there, right? In order for that second hand. Because when I tap, this is the view that I get.
It depends upon your block. Just like some faces have seconds as part of it, some faces don't. I believe the way it works is if you for some certain it varies from face to face. But all of the faces that I tend to use, and certainly the ones that have it as an option to display seconds, but you just have that option turned off because it's a little obnoxious to have it 24/7 up there, they will have it when you do the double tap. But you're right, it's not on every single face.
Yeah, so since I have the modular face on there, when I tap, it really basically, and just like it shows on this little picture here, it just shows a bigger version of that. But if I go over to one of my other faces, I'm not really sure which face this is, but now when I tap, it has the digital time, but then it has that ring of the
seconds.
What I'm
talking about.
That's what
the ring of seconds. I'm talking about a ring of seconds. That's what I'm talking about. A ring of seconds.
So it does depend a little on exactly which watch face that you're on in order for that to work. I mean, the double tap works if you have a supported watch on it, but it depends on what kind of a watch face that you're viewing at the time that you do the double tap, that what you see in that upper right corner on there. But it's cool. I usually have to go into like the timer or something, and I put in like, or I even tell my Apple Watch to give me 10 seconds or whatever, just to kind of see the countdown on there. But I realize I don't use the double tap enough, Jeff.
It's a useful gesture.
Really a cool
in fact,
thing.
while we're talking about it, I think on that same page that you were just on, there's a setting that first of all, you can turn the double tap on or off, but there is a setting that you can go to on your Apple Watch in the settings. If you go to settings and then gesture and then double tap, you can either turn it on or off. But if it's on, and if you tap the word double tap, you can choose what happens when you double tap. So for example, during playback, like playback of music or something like that, normally double tap will play pause, which is good, which is useful if you just want to pause the music real quick. But if you instead say, I will often want to skip a song because maybe I love to explore playlists, but what happens when a song comes up I don't like? You can switch it so that instead of double tap meaning play pause, double tap means skip. And so that's what you prefer. And then another thing that you can change is when you're in that smart stack display, which is the one I was just talking about, I have it set that a double tap in the smart stack will go to the next smart stack and the next one and the next one.
Me too.
And the next
I have
one.
that.
But another option is it will select the smart stack that's available. But that's a weird setting because not all smart stacks, at least in iOS 26, this may change, and I think this actually does change more in iOS 27, but in iOS 26, not all smart stacks even allow you to select them. And so even if you have select turned on in settings, if you're using one that doesn't allow you to select it, it will instead advance to the next one. So if I'm looking at like Carrot Weather, I can't select that, or any of the weather runs, I can't select it. And so double tapping will bring to the next one. So it gets a little confusing. I just prefer to keep it on advance for smokestack, for smart stack. But for playback, I can definitely see, although I prefer mine to play on play pause, I could see how some people might prefer it to be skip. I could totally see that.
That is fantastic. And I'm so glad that you did that extra, because I just had it on play pause, although I never used it. But the skip is interesting. And my big question is, does that work regardless of what app is playing the music? I gotta try this out. Like I know it's got to play on Apple Music, but I usually use Spotify when I run. And the reason this gets me excited is because if I want to skip a song, I either have to double click my AirPods, which is not easy to do when you're bobbing up and down, or I have to go in and tap my Spotify, skip button on my Apple Watch, which is what I normally do. But sometimes the workout app is running on my Apple Watch.
See, that's the thing.
Spotify.
If you're running,
I'm going to try that.
Using the Spotify app or using the workout app? Because if it's the workout app, what I don't know is if the workout app is being displayed on your watch and you choose this setting, does that skip songs? I haven't tried that yet. That's
okay. Well, I will report back then, because that's fantastic. I mean, if I can just do the tap like when I'm running or walking or hiking or something like that, like I can absolutely see. And I usually do have a workout running, but I listen to music on the Spotify app, and I usually have my phone with me, but sometimes I don't. But now I just want to know, can I just skip a song without having to like stop running and click in my AirPod? Or anyway, that's great. I'm glad that you went the extra step there and talked about that. I don't use that enough. I need to continue to use more gestures on my Apple Watch.
Agreed.
I feel like because you and I have been using the watch for so long, I just never started it that way.
And it's a relatively new feature. Yeah.
I gotta make myself do that better. Okay. We should announce quickly as we end here that next week is going to be a special edition. We've got some other things going on Friday next week, so we're going to record it early. I think we're tentatively calling it our favorite things. We're going to run through some of the things that we enjoy having, both apps and accessories and tips and things like that we want to share, mostly like gadgets and things like that. So anyway, just be in touch for that. I'm going to talk with you next week, Jeff, but we'll record a little bit early, but we'll go ahead and release it next Friday. That's what everybody I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be a really fun episode. So that's going to be great. A lot of fun. Slow news time right now anyway, so we'll focus on something that's a little bit more interesting than the very slow news day, although we found a lot to talk about today. I know. We're waiting for September 9th. Okay. Thanks as always, Jeff. We'll talk with you next week. Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye, everybody.